Good morning. Welcome to our optional Friday Zoom. This is great. We have lots of affiliates and a number of Main Streets and a number of advisory council members here this morning. This is great, and we'll keep the waiting room open. And I'm Ann Ball, Program Director at Maine Downtown Center. And I'm here with Sylvie Piquet, our other Maine Downtown Center Program Director.
Hello.
And we have a full agenda. So I'm going to start with a couple of announcements. Actually, I think we were going to do quick intros so that our guests from RU would know who's here. But I don't see Anna yet. Is that true, Sylvie?
I don't see her yet either. Wendy should, is Anna still going to join us?
Oh, here she comes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
There she is, just like that.
perfect.
Great.
Good timing.
Okay, great. So I did want to do a quick around the room, just so that our guests know who is here. And Sylvie, you want to help me monitor the waiting room? It keeps coming through here this morning. So I'm just
have to. Oh yeah. Well, can you make me a co-host?
Oh, that would help, wouldn't it? Hold on. There you go. You should get the notifications of the waiting room. So I'm just going to do quick call outs, just with your name and who you're here representing. So Terry Ann, I'm going to start with you and your puppy on your shoulders.
Yeah, Terry Ann Holden, and I'm here as a member of the Advisory Council and also as DECD, and Milo is just monitoring the situation.
Great. And Cara?
Cara Romano, Director of Heart of Ellsworth.
Thanks. Scott Burke. Oops, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yep, Scott from Norway and part of the Advisory Council.
And Ross.
Good morning, Economic Community Development Director in Lisbon, and my dog, no, he's too big.
Okay, we'll get him on screen later. Gemma.
I'll work on it.
Hi, Gemma Gascoigne from the Munson Collaborative.
Great. And Dave Gogel.
Hey, Dave Gogel from Rockland Main Street.
And Melissa.
Hi, Melissa Lindley, Gardner Main Street.
And Chantel.
Hi, I am also from Munson Collaborative.
Great. And Monson Arts.
Yes, and Munson Arts.
And I'll skip over Wendy and Anna for the moment. And Bill.
Good morning to all. I'm Bill King, a longtime member of the ACE Advisory Council, but fully retired except for this.
And a founder of Main Street Bath. Let's not forget that. Jennifer or Jen, you know, your signature in there.
Jen Day, Saco Main Street.
Delilah, nice to see you because I know you usually have a conflict.
Good morning. Yep, Delilah Popor from Heart of Bedford.
Christina.
Christina Cannon, Main Street, Skowhegan.
And Carrie.
Sorry, trying to eat breakfast here. Carrie Tyson, Advisory Council, Executive Director, Portland Downtown.
Thanks for joining us for breakfast. I wish I was having some with you. Sarah Hansen.
Hi, this is Sarah Hansen from Greater Portland Landmarks. I'm about to go to work, so I'm going to turn my camera off. But hi,
okay. Thanks for being here. Okay, I think that's everybody. Did I miss anybody? Great. And again, Anna and Wendy will give you a shout out in a few minutes. So a couple updates from the Maine Downtown Center. You've all had some briefing on the work that Bendable is doing, and some of you are kind of actively participating. So just as a reminder, they are developing these educational resources, including job training and certifications, and they're going to be pushing out a survey, right, Sylvie, for businesses that we're going to push out through you at some point. Do you know the timeline on that, Sylvie?
I think it's like pretty soon here is my understanding.
Okay,
So-
great. So we'll be in touch about that and what that looks like. I continue to believe, and I think Sylvie does too, when we meet with them, that they will be a really great downtown partner in a lot of intersections. And we just kind of don't, we're still kind of making our way is the best way to describe it. And, you know, it won't be a requirement. It'll be an option for you to participate. And obviously we're hopeful, but I do still, like I said, really believe in this partnership. So let's see, reporting reminders, your favorite. So if you could think about getting those help me, Sylvie, January through June of 2022 reports in for Main Street.
For affiliates, it's 2021.
Right,
And
for the
I
whole
think all of our affiliates who are present here today have submitted your reporting. So good work.
Good job. And those are our only announcements. And we're going to go to our guest, but I just want to make sure there's no questions on the announcements before I turn it over to Sylvie. Okay. All right, Sylvie, turning it over to you to talk about our guests from RU, and I will monitor the waiting room.
Excellent. Okay, great. Well, yeah, we're fortunate to have RU here with us today. We've got Anna Ackerman, who's the Entrepreneurship Program Manager, and then Wendy Blackwell-Moore, who's the Senior Director of Entrepreneurship at the RU Institute. And they have just an exciting event, I'll call it event or program coming up in 2023 that they wanted to talk to us about, called the START Summit. And they're looking for some different locations for the START Summit across the state for 2023. And so they're going to present and say a little bit about the work they're doing in the START Summit, and hopefully find some opportunity to bring some of this great work that they're doing to your area. Anna and Wendy, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Sylvie, so much. I'm Wendy Blackwell-Moore, and I have to say I'm excited to be on this call, especially because a lot of these locations across the state of Maine are some of my favorite places. I'm a lifetime Mainer. I grew up in Carmel, Maine, went to Herman High School, and have spent lots of time in these different areas, you know, exploring and hunting and fishing and doing all these things. So I love the locations that we're looking at here and partnering with. To create context, I thought I'd tell you just quickly what the RU Institute is and what role the entrepreneurship group plays within that. So the RU Institute we're actually creating a university that is located in Portland, Maine from scratch. And so the RU Institute is a remote location for Northeastern University, which has 13 global locations. And we are programming PhD programs, graduate programs, and research at the RU, and have established partnerships across all types of organizations across the state of Maine in support of, economic development and job growth in the state, aligned to the industries and the work that Maine needs to grow. The role of entrepreneurship in that is very much around economic development. We focus on educational programs, which Anna can talk about. And the goal there is for us to really get out of Portland, get out of Cumberland County, and get into the state and help provide resources that are required for businesses to grow, for entrepreneurship to blossom out of different parts of the state. The other thing we do is really around new venture creation, which is incubating startups. And so we have different residency programs where we bring founders in, we co-locate them for 12 months at the RU, and they have a 3-month intensive resource time where we provide mentorship and programming and guidance in order for those businesses to grow and scale. So what we want to talk to you about today is really the opportunity to leverage the resources that we have in support of your efforts, really depending on, what you need in your different programs. We'd love to just have conversations about what's possible and how we can support that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Anna on the education piece. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be with you this morning. So one program that we have run twice in the past year is the Maine Start Summit. And this program focuses on the early stage of building a scalable startup, where we see the Rue Institute really adding value to Maine's startup ecosystem is in helping folks across Maine think about developing high growth or high scalable business. And there's a lot of potential to take an existing business model and be using design thinking skills and thinking about how can Maine be a leader in innovating in this particular industry. So the Start Summit is essentially an idea hackathon. It's a 1.5-day event where we bring people together who are excited about a specific sector or theme that the community that we've partnered with has chosen. And over the course of a day and a half, we're offering design thinking workshops, prototyping, and other workshops that guide teams in looking at a specific problem that they want to address and then developing a startup solution based on their findings. It's a very fast-paced, intensive 1.5 days, and it ends with a pitch competition at the end where we're offering prize money, and we have a panel of judges who are stakeholders in the industry. So we'd love to know from all of you if this is something that you might be interested in bringing to your towns, and if so, how we might partner and create a program that is really tailored for your town and for your constituents who might be interested in exploring startups. No experience is necessary for this program. Our aim is to keep it as open as possible. And in the past, what we've done is bring in students and people from all kinds of different backgrounds, some with technical expertise, some without. And the goal is really to bring in a very diverse group of people to be able to solve problems, bringing their different angles of experience together to the table.
And Anna, before we open it up to questions, can you tell them a little bit about the Startup Discovery Program? Because that might be of interest as well.
Yeah. So we have another early stage program that we're actually launching today for the first time at the Rue Institute here in Portland. And this is a program we would also love to bring across the state. It's essentially a 4-hour workshop where we start with a design thinking workshop and then have a guest entrepreneur tell their founder story. Somebody who's in our founders residency currently is our guest speaker today. And then we do a panel that shows different resources that folks have available to them in their community or in the state. So it's really an entry point. We see it for someone who's curious about exploring what starting a startup means in the state.
And Anna, what was that one called?
That's called Startup Discovery. Yeah, and for both the Start Summit and the Startup Discovery, we're targeting somewhere between 50 to 80 people per event. And this is what we found is that with around 50 people in a Start Summit, you can create some really dynamic teams, but also have enough of a closed group to create a cohort and a supportive environment for people who are maybe a little bit nervous about entering this space and need the support of the group to feel comfortable.
And I would say, both of these programs, part of the intention here is to sort of demystify what entrepreneurship is. I mean, Maine is made up of thousands and thousands of small business. Every one of those folks is an entrepreneur. And so we know that as business exists in Maine in that way, there's an opportunity to provide sort of support, dedicated time and education and resource to those groups to be able to think about what does it look like to have, instead of one of these operations, two of these operations, or what does it look like to actually scale in my existing location in this way, and help sort of identify and uncover all the ecosystem of resources available within the state, because there are many, but at times there are so many that it just becomes like you don't even know where to go, because it's so daunting of a task to sort of muddle through who to go to for what.
Yeah, I think we can open it up to questions.
Gemma.
Is there like marketing funds that accompany the program, or have you done it before in different locations?
Yes, so we've done one in Waterville and one in Portland. The one in Waterville had the theme of agriculture and food systems. And then the one in Portland was blue tech. And in each case, we had sponsors from the industry sponsor the event and also have a presence at the event. For example, Johnny Seeds was a sponsor of our Waterville event and was able to provide some promotional material for all the participants. So that's the model that we've been working with. And I think we're looking to ensure that these are sustainable and accessible. Previously, we've charged $25 per participant, and that covers all of their meals throughout the event. So it's a pretty good value to the participant, but we want to make sure that they are committed to being in the program when they sign up.
Yeah.
Dave? Sorry.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for that overview. Again, I'm from Rockland, and we actually were in the process of planning something similar up here. So Sylvie, you had met kind of the Steelhouse group and some of those stakeholders. We were planning on doing something in collaboration, because one of the things that we realized is there were multiple members in our community that were starting to like pitch stuff and get invited to Techstars and these other things. And so we were trying to figure out how we could support up here. In preparation for this meeting, I'd had a conversation with those stakeholders, and everybody's really open to kind of pivoting it to what we're talking about here. So could you just share a little bit about kind of timing and next steps if we did want to try and make that happen? What's the timeline, and what are those immediate next steps?
Yeah, good question. So we would want to work with you to figure out what timing works best in your community. If there's a particular time of year that you would like to see this launched and when you think this would be most successful. And we would work together with you to figure out the right location to bring everybody together. We have partnered with schools in the past as a location for these, but I think this can really happen anywhere where you can fit 50 to 80 people. And yeah, I think as much as you and other stakeholders would want to be involved, we want to make sure it's a collaborative effort. And then on the day of, we would bring our team from the entrepreneurship team here at the Rue Institute to make sure that everything is on time and we have our facilitators in place and we run a really smooth show.
And David, I would just add that I think the key component is sort of meeting with you now to understand what is it that you were trying to accomplish strategically for Rockland and Greater Rockland? Who are the stakeholders? What are their interest in being, sort of invested in doing a program like this? And figuring out, is there a particular topic you want to address? Right? Like we can certainly theme it. We can certainly keep it open and do more of a community event where, we've got, 5 different topics for 5 different teams to address. We can sort of do it a number of different ways. But I think the work that we really have to do is once we secure the location, we're seeking sponsorship funding for the event. We have to do the marketing along with you to say, how do we get, enough critical mass to make it successful? And then it's really about, doing the execution, which means partly how do we get the right people to the table that are going to add value for Rockland, right? So we want to bring in mentors, subject matter expertise to sort of, as the group goes through the process, make sure they feel supported and they've got some guidance and expertise that help facilitate that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just if it's helpful for the group on all those points, one of the things that we were struggling with is, again, trying to identify that critical mass. So we're partnering with Live and Work in Maine on an event coming up, and we specifically are tailoring the registration questions and some of the work that we're doing to get our arms better around that. So for those on the call that's a good, because tapping into Live and Work in Maine to kind of understand those who are new to the community that have these skill sets has been helpful for us, and we've done a few of those. So maybe we can take the rest of this conversation offline, but we're very interested in kind of already running through the city. So Anne or Sylvia, if you could just connect us and we can take it from there. Cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
One thing that I'll add is in our most recent iteration of the START Summit, we had a panel of industry experts present at the outset of the program, and they spoke to different challenges that they've seen in their industry, really specific challenges that they thought would make for good fodder for entrepreneurs to be exploring solutions for. And that really helped to frame the weekend and helped to ensure that the teams had access to a certain number of problems if they didn't already come in with some problem in mind to be working on.
Great. Thanks. What other questions are there? Christina.
Good morning. I'm curious to know that if a particular, specifically in like the Waterville instance in the last iteration that you did with them, did it bring in people from around the state for the event? I'm assuming so. Or did you rely more heavily on local participation, local entrepreneurial participation?
Yeah. So the goal with these is really to make them hyper local and regional and not have people driving across the state to go to one. Although, we're not accepting people, but we want these to be really focused on the community that we're engaging. At the one in Waterville, we had, I'd say, a radius of about 30 minutes from Waterville of people who are participating. And we did have a few people actually find the event and drive up from Boston. And in our Portland one, we had someone find the event and drive up from New York. So the event isn't closed, but we want the focus really to be on the community.
Awesome. What other questions are there? Yeah, Ross.
So just real quick, you mentioned the food industry, and of course we have Springworks here in Lisbon, and I'd like to focus on that. But what other industries do you need, or what other industries do you see as good focal points? If we were to host one in Lisbon and pull from Lewis and Auburn and Brunswick, Bath, what other industries would you think would be good targets?
That's a great question. I think that we're really quite open to hearing from you and stakeholders that you've been working with. We don't want to come with the solution to you. We really want to be listening. I think there's a lot of opportunity to explore innovation in Maine's own resources and what can we do with invasive species, what can we do with waste products, what can we do with opportunities that we haven't created value-added products in. There's a lot of opportunity in blue tech and climate tech in the state. And I think we really want to make sure that whatever is decided is the right fit for the community that we're in, and that we can bring in members of that community to speak to the problems that are ripe for solving. Thank you.
And Christina, did you have a question as well?
Since no one was talking, I was just going to say that I'd definitely be interested in learning more and having a conversation offline about this. So particularly around our outdoor rec industry that I would like to see.
Oh yeah.
grow. So yeah,
Yeah,
happy to
that's
support.
Christina, that's a perfect example where, there's lots of small players, right, that are doing either sole proprietor work or, aren't connected to a bigger scalable sort of effort. And I think that's exactly the spot, right? It's like, what are all the challenges to scale in this area? And then you get those teams in there sort of incubating those ideas, trying to come up with solutions and then pitching about it. And so it's really just cultivating all that energy through a facilitated process to try to get some new and interesting, dynamic ideas to the table. I love it.
Cool. Great.
I just want to say that I really appreciate the in real time conversation and presentation around this stuff, because until Christina just gave her sort of idea of how she would apply this in her community, it took me a minute, but I have also figured out that we have been really trying to figure out a way to have an event sort of during Q1, Q2 in Ellsworth through our organization. And as a way to be able to support all of the aquaculture that's happening in our region. And we've been trying for like 3 years to figure out how to bring all of these sort of small town or time farms and different people that are doing aquaculture work in our region and how to bring them together. And so again, thank you all for the presentation, because it helps us frame it up.
Oh, yeah. The aquaculture one is ripe for this. And we have relationships with, some of the players that are scaling and showing really great success and helping folks pivot from industries where they're super challenged in what the future looks like and pivoting into new things, right? So I love that idea. I mean, like anything is possible in this, and we're just providing a structure to have the conversation with some, guided facilitation through the tools. So that's awesome. Thanks, Kara.
And Anne, I see your hand. Looks like Bill also has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, am I on mute?
Nope.
You're good. We can hear you.
Okay, years ago, we attempted something like this, but we were encouraged by the national to do clusters. In other words, have your downtown focus on a specific industry. For instance, restaurants, or in our case in Bath, we do restaurants, we do home service like picture framing. We have a furniture store in the middle of our downtown. We have a hardware store in the middle of our downtown, focusing on home service. So I'm wondering what you do to get people to focus on an industry which would develop a cluster, which would entice people to come to that town to look at various different entrepreneurs that cover that which you are specializing in your downtown. So we develop some clusters that are a draw for customers from away and from nearby. Thanks.
Bill, I just maybe want to ask a clarifying question. So with the clusters, you're saying it's a number of businesses or entrepreneurs with a given sort of sector or industry that you're trying to attract to your Main Street town.
That's right. That's what works best in a downtown.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think we'd have to think about what that means in relationship to what we're offering and what we're saying. I think because that sounds somewhat like the marketing side of it. I'm not 100% sure, but
I'm going to chime in a minute, Wendy, if that's okay.
Please.
So the Main Street concept that Bill is talking about, and the Main Street entrepreneurs, right? In Bath, he's talking about it's design. The furniture store is actually like a design center. And then, the framing and the kitchen store, like it's kind of all this cluster. Yes. But these Main Street organizations, part of their mission is to draw people to their downtowns, to keep them vibrant, and they are economic engines. So as much as supporting entrepreneurs, and it's part of what they do. I mean, I'll talk in a minute about this ecosystem project this group is largely doing. I think it's that issue of like, all right, you know, how are we attracting people to downtown? We're not just cultivating entrepreneurs and sending them on their way to scale. So I think it's kind of thinking about it the way the main streets are like, well, we also need to bring people downtown. And is there a way to develop that cluster of entrepreneurs? And how does that intersect with you? And yes, part of it is marketing, but part of it is actually economic development and saying we have, you know, we have space on this floor that would do this. And it's putting all those pieces together and working on that.
Yeah. I think in that way, where we could add value is in sort of having those conversations and talking about where we've seen success in clustering our entrepreneurs and what that looks like. I see what you're saying though, and that's different. Yeah, it's not marketing. It's just how you engage on a community level with making sure that all the power of those people are working together.
Yeah, and actually creating opportunity for interested cluster types to come to your downtown and be part of that ecosystem more directly. And what are those opportunities? So it's that. And then I'm also going to, I know Sarah has her hand up. I'm also going to overlay one more thing. When I think of Biddeford and I think of Westbrook in particular, and I'm probably forgetting others, both of those communities have mills that are these spaces where there are so many innovators and entrepreneurs and people testing, and it's a mix. There is not a theme.
Right.
And I really want to throw that out there because like in Biddeford, Delilah has so many people in like textiles and like outdoor products and food, right? And same with Amy in Westbrook. So how do you think about that with you know, the startup program?
Yeah, we can talk about that more. I'm sure there's, I see what you mean. I mean, I'll just say there is a lot of conversation we can have about that because some of you probably know that we're moving our campus or building a campus out at the B&M Big Bean Factory location. And that B&M Bean building will be the entrepreneurship innovation hub. And so within that hub, we're trying to create an environment where we have portfolio companies or what you would say is clusters within that space, partners who are coming in to work out of that space, but then to also to provide, right, like mentorship and guidance of how to help those companies. And they're across all sectors. And there's, you know, we're providing research capabilities through there and academic support, student interns. So the intention is that there's an innovation hub with multiple types of business that you're promoting and supporting, you know, the success of those business together.
Great. Thanks for that, Wendy. And Sarah, why don't you jump in?
Perfect timing. Just pulled into my parking lot. So this is great. And I just want to note that like how psyched we are for the B&M Baked Bean building to get rehabbed and be this new center. It's really going to be fantastic. Just kind of along those lines, we have been along with you know, a lot of other preservationists across the country have been starting conversations with the preservation trades community in trying to build entrepreneurship there, get more people into the trades and apprenticeship and things like that. And I wonder if working with you all to enhance that conversation might be something that would be really helpful for kind of both of us as we move forward, trying to get more people in there in that field.
Yeah.
That.
No, I think let's talk about it, Sarah. I think it's all of this is worth. Let's sit down and have a cup of coffee. You're in Portland, I see, right?
I am.
Greater
Yes.
Portland.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, let's have coffee at the Roo. We have a great coffee machine.
Fabulous.
Okay. So let's figure that out.
Perfect. Great. Thanks.
And just that is a huge huge issue and opportunity. So I've been overseeing a grant program for 2 years, and we don't have the skilled preservation professionals to do the work we need on those projects, whether it's, you know, slate roof installation, historic masonry. There are so many needs. If you need a historic window repaired, Bagala Windows in Westbrook has how many years waiting list, Sarah? Like 3-year waiting. It's huge. So it's a huge workforce as well as entrepreneurial opportunity.
Yep.
Oh my, and talk about the need to scale. Like, you know, how much more opportunity could they have if, you know, we could actually get through the backlog?
Yeah. And there's actually when we talk, I'll share with you, there's a brand new study about the preservation trades nationally that shows all of the gaps in the industry and where the opportunities are. And I know that there's a main preservation involved in doing that study regionally too, that should be out in the coming year. So we'll have a lot of really good data.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, us too. Thanks.
Thanks for jumping in, Sarah. Any other questions? Yeah, Cassie, and then we'll go to Christina, and then we'll wrap up about 9:10 on this section, but we'll talk about some next steps and how you can keep these conversations going. This is great. Go ahead, Cassie.
I'm just wondering if so I was wondering if there was anything in particular towards tourism specifically, because like I'm from Monson, and our town population is 700 people, but we have such a huge influx, like 70,000 people visit the Moosehead Lake area. So I'm wondering like if tourism rather than like food tourism or parks and rec or that kind of, if you can encompass it all under one and really show smaller places that have these big many different revenue streams along with like the bigger picture, if you will, like how to have a sustainable economy in like seasonality, because we also have a ski mountain 20 minutes away, so we're on a lake, so there's and there's a bunch of other different things. So I was just wondering if that, like, there are opportunities there where you're not just like, it's not necessarily one particular type of business, but rather ones that focus on seasonality and how to grow a big entrepreneur within that setting.
Yeah.
Cassie,
I mean, I think, go ahead.
I would just say that if there's a challenge, then there's an opportunity for a Start Summit to bring people together to address the challenge. And if the challenge is as broad as tourism and seasonality, that's it. Then like you can create a Start Summit and figure out what those opportunities are together with that community.
Yeah. And I think our expertise that we're bringing to the table, I mean, we do have a tech focus, but it is also the thesis we're operating under, that we believe, based on where we're at in this day and age, that every solution has a tech component, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when you go to execute something, there's always a relationship to technology. So I think all of the industry topics become open and on the table because of that.
Great. Thanks for that. I think, these conversations are definitely going to continue, which is exciting that this has been a spark for it. Looks like Christina's question was just if you could pop a link with more information into the chat, and that'll help folks gain a little more information. And then in terms of next steps, what we'll do is certainly in the kind of email wrap up from this meeting, we'll send out contact information for Anna and Wendy. And so then you all can be able to continue that conversation with them, and we could even CC you both on that so that it's easy to connect.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're so grateful to take up space in this meeting time. I know y'all have a lot to talk about, and we're just super excited about extending our reach and opportunity out to you and anything we can do to support. So I know y'all are working so hard to stimulate the economy in these towns and communities. And Anna and I are both from Maine and have a deep passion for what it takes to make sure that that happens in an effective way. So we're here to support.
And I've popped the link in the chat, but I think with each of you, if this is something that you do want to pursue, we really want to hear from you.
Great. Thank you both so much for joining us and just really listening to just like where these directors are all doing this great work in their communities and what it might look like being in their communities with this Start Summit and the other new program, Startup Discovery too. Some possibilities there. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Awesome. So we're going to transition. We're going to pivot to a different topic. But again, we'll follow up with information about the Start Summit so that you all can continue just wheels moving on that. That was great. That was great conversation. This next topic actually came up from one of the affiliate leaders, directors who looks like wasn't able to make it today, but I think Ann and I talked about it. It's a more universal topic than, just his singular experience. So we'll bring back to him any ideas that you all have had to help with really balancing that personal and professional kind of role that you each play as downtown leaders. And I think for him, the rub really came in when there was a perspective, issue on the table, movement downtown, and he didn't agree with it, posted on his personal Facebook page that doesn't even have his name, but I guess he's got an alias. But anyway, obviously it's a small town, so everyone knows. So he posted he was opposed to it, and then it got back. I think it was a city councilor who reached out to his board and said, "Oh, well, at the short of it, his position on this is threatening the funding of your organization." So it was, a pretty contentious thing. He did address it with his board, was very transparent of like, okay, here's exactly what I posted. Here's what this is about. But I think he was also trying to work out like, how political can a downtown organization get? How apolitical does a downtown director need to remain? And I think just working through this, obviously there's going to be certain, stances on issues that the downtown organization needs to be able to be, vocal about. But I'd love to hear from you all, because obviously, Ann and I had some thoughts, but would love to just hear about your experience with this and either, what you learned from it not going well or what, kind of policies or practices you have in place for either, downtown staff and or board members. That would be helpful. Amy, I saw you go off of mute. Do you have anything?
Who made the controversial post? Was it the executive director or was it the board member?
Executive director.
And then the city came and talked to them about it.
Yeah, one of the city councilors reached out to one of the board members. I assume they kind of already had, a friendly relationship or a relationship of some kind. And the counselor was like, this is really, not okay, because this would be great for our town because of X, Y, and Z. And you're, by doing this, it's threatening funding for the downtown organization that comes through the city. So.
But many of you have had board members go a little rogue or committee members maybe. So I know you've all been dealing with it and some of you have policies. And Dave, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for the sake of this, like the specific conversation we're having here, as well as the broader one. I think in the case of this executive director, and again, I'd had an offline with him. I don't necessarily know if the post was controversial. It was just perceived as questioning awareness of something in the city, which I think is a big difference. So I just wanted to clarify. I don't think that this executive director, from my personal opinion, posted anything controversial. I think it's whether or not an executive director of a Main Street program is allowed to question the process or something like that. So I just like as that's clarifying there. And I would say just the reason why I had this conversation was we had the exact opposite experience in Rockland, and so I know this is being recorded. So it's like, well, I'll be.
Do you want me to turn? I can totally turn off recording.
I don't know. I mean, I don't. I think. No, it's all good. It's all good. I'll just
Okay.
share. I think it's, and I think most people on this call know. So previous to my kind of being involved with this, we had some tension with the city. Our funding was in jeopardy. The city council has now, I mean, they've doubled our funding, and that was because we took an active role in some of these things. And so I think I had the exact opposite experience as this executive director. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing is kind of a couple of our city councilors would like to speak with that executive director to talk about the way the Main Street program has provided more value because we've kind of rolled up our sleeves a little bit on some of these issues. The last thing I'll say on this, because I don't want to take up too much airtime, is just my perspective was the Main Street program has evolved. And I think that as a program, we now have some clear opinions on some of these things and some of the things that we're advocating for. And I know as 501, I know we're not like a C6 where we're advocating, but like we do, there are things that we're pushing for, right? In general, that we think are good for economic development, that are good for community resilience, things that like are table stakes now. And in my mind, when there is an issue around something that we've all agreed are table stakes around either like being a welcoming community or environmental resiliency, things like this, that we have a right to take a stand there and to advocate for things that we believe in. And if the city is going in a different direction, or if there's a city councilor who feels differently, I think personally that I have benefited from advocating for our position there. And I know that might be different in other communities, but I just wanted to share that. And I did share that directly with that executive director as well.
And Dave, are you advocating as director of Rockland Main Street, or are you advocating, because I know you used to live in Rockland?
Yeah.
As a resident.
I actually, a lot of times I am very specific. And a lot of times council will come to me and say, I'm asking for you as your like community member hat or this, but so when we're speaking on behalf, we'll do like a poll, or we'll try and get some kind of data point. But even, let's be real, the things that we ask for data on, the things that we survey on around like affordable housing, like that in of itself telegraphs our kind of our thoughts here a little bit, just if we're being real with each other. And so, but it's all of us live in small communities, and it's like people kind of now know where the Main Street program stands, and that has opened up doors for us. It's opened up partnerships, and it's opened up funding for us with the city. So I think it's important to put that on the table and not just say, hey, I think there's value in being upfront about the where we want to see things going, and not just being a bystander. That's one perspective, and it's been valuable in Rockland. I'll go back on mute.
Well, and Dave, I'll just highlight that that partnership with the city and with those counselors. And I think that being kind of this like really important piece to it all is that you've done a lot of hard work to establish those partnerships. And so now you're able to leverage, with each other as an important piece to make sure the downtown grows in a healthy way. Delilah, I think I saw your hand next, and then we'll get to you, Ross.
It seems like there are at least two things on the table. One was about like how, as an individual director, you do stuff, and the other is how political can your organization, or how much can your organization have a stance on something. And I have noticed almost 12 years in this job, I definitely do not say everything I want to say on social media. I want to say so much. So I lurk. I don't necessarily say everything. Because I have outsized influence in town because of the job I have. So when I do say something, it might be Delilah Papor's personal opinion, but 700 of my friends on Facebook are people who friended me because I run Heart of Biddeford, if that makes any sense. So I don't think I can pretend that my personal social media is completely personal. And I also know this because there is another like nonprofit director who went to social media to blast things a lot. And I saw within City Hall how that person and her organization got pushed aside. So I definitely say things that are against what the city is doing in my personal page, or I advocate more for anti-racism stuff on my personal page than I would on Heart of Biddeford's page. But I, for better or worse, definitely do it with an eye of, I'm still seen as the Heart of Biddeford director. locally. And then the other thing is regarding the organization being political. I think I loved hearing David say we, because if it's Delilah's direction for Heart of Biddeford and we're getting political or we're changing this, that is bound to hit a dead end at some point. You have to be doing it with your board. You have to be moving in the, you can motivate your board, you can move your board, but you can't, it's not very successful if you're out there alone doing it.
That's great. Yeah, that alignment is really critical in making sure it's a group decision of, you know, what does this downtown organization value and what do we recommend? So I'm glad you're highlighting that. Ross.
So, you know, I think Delilah hit on a lot of the stuff I was going to talk about, but I totally agree that you know, if you're taking a stance that your board is not supporting, that's a totally different conversation, because then you're on a different mindset than your board, and there's a breakdown there. If you and the board are taking a stance that the town is not taking, then I'm with David. You guys should be pushing your agenda and trying to make things go the way you want it to go. In my position, obviously, I'm an employee of the town, so there's a totally different thing. And I've got policies, and as much as I hate policies, I would advocate that you and your board figure out a policy that covers you for having the right to be a free speech kind of person on your own personal Facebook page. But as Delilah said, you've got to keep in mind that your friends are overlapping with other stuff. The thing that concerns me in this case, and I don't know the whole situation, is the whole threat of funding. That just bothers me immensely, that the city councilor would talk about removing funding because the director said something that was contrary to what the city wants to see happen. That's out of line, in my opinion. But
yeah, I think that was one of the more upsetting pieces. Yeah.
So yeah, just, I mean, I think the other, I think specifically the post was like questioning if anybody had heard. I think that's one of the big lessons I've learned is like, you should always take things offline with the city, because there's no reason to like embarrass a staff member in a public meeting when you could have had a private conversation. So I think I think that is like a big learning lesson for that director too, is like, hey, if you have a question about something, like you have the benefit of being able to take that offline to do that, and don't do that in a public setting from your personal place. So I think that, like, that aside, more what I'm getting at is like, it seems like as Main Street programs in the past, we've shied away from things that we thought like we you know what I mean? Whereas now I feel like more and more all of us are doing that. Like we're taking a stand on, I mean, Delilah's, I mean, I think we all point to Delilah and Heart of Biddeford and the work that she's done around some of these important social issues that in the past, it felt like maybe that wasn't something that a Main Street program would do. And maybe I'm wrong about that. I've only, you know, again, I've only been here for a few years, but just, it seems like there's been an evolution of in our work. And I think as staff, we're more empowered than ever. And I think that's the reason why the city comes to us on these issues, because they see that we are these, like, you know, this like aggregate of all these opinions, and we're thinking carefully about this, and we just have more data and insight. And if we're not going to use that data and insight to inform and use our platform, then like what are we even doing? And I would just also just say, I just think that like the future of all of this has changed. Like people are looking for leaders of organizations to be more authentic. And when you're not, you're seeing that your engagement on social media, your engagement in city meetings, anything is going to dramatically go down, because people just don't want to hear like the soft, like, you know what I mean? Like scripted version. They want to hear, as an organization, as you talk to people and you see these challenges, like, what do you really feel? And if you feel like something in your community is going against the climate resiliency goals that have been set out, it's like, it's on us, I think, to speak up there, but to do it in a way that there's no reason to like call out or embarrass city staff about a process, which I think is a big learning lesson in this one. So I know I'm like opinionated here, but I think it seems like this is a really important thing for us as an organization if we're going to continue to be valuable. And I know that I'm also on the board of my chamber up here, and like, this is something that our chamber is trying to do more of, because they've noticed like the Main Street programs are way more active on some of these issues than the chamber is. And so it's like, well, how can the chamber take a role here with the lever that they have, because they've seen that it's been really impactful for the Main Street program to take a stand on things like housing and these other things that maybe felt a little bit untouchable in the past.
Wow. Thanks, Dave. Christina, did I see your hand?
Actually,
Sorry.
it's Amy who's had her hand up.
Oh, great.
Thanks. So we've had a lot of instances where controversy has kind of popped up in our community. But I think that what I wanted to share is like we did recently have one of our board it's hard to talk about this abstractly because I don't understand the nuances of what's going on here. What you put in the email sounds very different from what Dave's describing. But I will say that we did have a board member go rogue, and he started talking about how he didn't think, we should be a Main Street program and that we should become more of like a membership organization. And he didn't understand why we needed paid staff and, all these things. And he started posting stuff on social media, and our board got together and they sat down with him and said, this is not okay. If you want to be a board member, this is the guidelines. These are the guardrails. And we are a Main Street program. It brings us lots of things. And if you want to be on board, then you have to be on board. And so it was like a reckoning, and he has completely changed his tune. So having conversations like that with your board, which is what I thought this was about. The other flip of it is organizational values and controversy with the city. I was going to actually say what Dave said, like, there is no reason to say something like controversial, like social media is not a place to have a conversation. I mean, I feel like it's like, especially between you and a partner that you're trying to build a relationship with, like, it feels like these kind of conversations should be happening one-on-one or in small group settings. When you bring it to social media, it becomes a community conversation, and it changes your relationship with that organization. And they should be done, in my opinion, it should be more offline if you wanted to actually solve something and build a relationship there. That's all I have to say.
That's great.
Bill, did you have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to comment. I've been in this business a long time, 40 or 50 years, and I've been called upon many times to advise executive director types and people in those positions. And I will share my comments with you all. Delilah and Ross have hit on most of them. I always tell those who have a question about what they should say and when they should say it, always be looking over your shoulder to see who is supporting you or will support you on this issue. This is a game of numbers. You may call it politics, but it's who is going to go along with you. You have to have the numbers. And if you get in the habit of always thinking that way, you will be a lot more successful. If you don't have the numbers when you start to add them up and are looking over your shoulder, think about how you might change those numbers. But once you get in the habit of doing it, you won't make mistakes and you will be a lot more successful. So start looking over your shoulder and going for those numbers. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Do we have any other comments on this one? And I appreciate the breadth that, it took, because I think there was a lot in the initial topic as it was presented. And so we tried to boil it down a bit, but great. Thanks for your engagement on this. We are at 9:30. And do you want to add in anything?
No, just thank you all for coming. Reminder about reporting, and I hope you all get a little break at the end of the year. We'll be sending out MDC communication before the end of the year, kind of a little reflective newsletter. And to me, it's been a pretty amazing year. I just continually look at what you guys are doing and am amazed and inspired. And I have a few communications due to the Monson crew and to Jen Day. So look for those emails coming out. Let Sylvie or me know if you have any questions or concerns that we weren't able to discuss today, since we had two big topics. So thank you. That's it. And if you
Thanks
need to
all
stay
so
on
much.
for a minute, Sylvie and I'll hang out.
Yeah, I have a quick question for Ann and Sylvie afterwards.